Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving straight into the holy grail of analytics, the data to action bridge. We're going to explore exactly how raw data actually becomes concrete, actionable business advice. We hear so much buzz about big data, complex algorithms, and predictive models, but honestly, all of that is virtually useless if it doesn't lead to a real-world decision. So let's jump right in and see how we actually make that transformation happen.
First things first, I want you to step back for a second and ask yourself, why is your organization collecting all this data in the first place? It is incredibly easy to get completely lost in the weeds of fancy statistical models, but we've got to remember, analytics isn't just about doing math for the sake of doing math, right? It's fundamentally driven by overarching organizational objectives. We analyze data because we're trying to hit a larger strategic or tactical goal. Every single thing we do has to connect right back to that one simple question. Why are we doing this?
All right, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, the goal of business analytics. Second, the 6-step data journey. Third, hunting for the right data. Fourth, defining the actionable insight. And finally, linking actions to goals.
Part 1. The goal of business analytics. The hard truth to swallow here is that every single successful analytics project has to perfectly align with whatever strategic or tactical goals upper management has set, like growing market size, for example.
Moving right along to Part 2, the 6-step data journey.
So every solid analytical research project follows a super logical life cycle to bridge that gap between high-level management goals and your final results. Step 1 is understanding those overarching objectives we just talked about. Step 2, you translate those objectives into highly specific research questions. Step 3, you determine what data you actually have on hand. Step 4, you collect any additional data if you need it. Step 5, you do the heavy lifting, analyzing the data. And finally, Step 6 is reporting the findings. As you can see, it flows perfectly from figuring out the core question to delivering the final answer.
Which brings us to Part 3, hunting for the right data.
Okay, once you've nailed down your exact questions in steps 1 and 2, you have to figure out if you actually possess the raw materials to answer them. When profiling customers, you're generally hunting in 2 main buckets. On one side, you have demographics. This is the static stuff. Who your customers are, gender, income, marital status, education level. On the flip side, you have behavior, the highly dynamic data of what they actually do. How often are they buying from you? Are they clicking around on your website? Are they roasting you in social media comments? To get the full picture, you have to contrast those static demographic traits with their dynamic actions.
So the million-dollar question, where do you actually find all this stuff? Well, you always start in your own backyard, right? You look at your internal customer interactions and loyalty programs. But let's be real, that usually falls a bit short. Analysts constantly have to look outward. For demographics, you might tap into a government census poll, like in the US where there's a massive free census available every 10 years. Or you might just buy data from third-party aggregators who specialize in population stats. And for that behavioral data, you might need to team up with web tracking your social media companies to see what your customers are up to outside of your own ecosystem.
Let's move to Part 4, defining the actionable insight. Remember Step 6 of our journey, reporting the findings? Well, you can't just slide a giant spreadsheet across the boardroom table and expect a high five. You have to deliver your findings in a way that actually makes sense to the business users, and you do that by delivering an actionable insight. Now, an actionable insight isn't just trivia. It's a very specific class of understanding. It's what happens when you combine your analytical results with the business context of the situation to create a clear-cut directive. It literally drives a person or a whole organization to do something.
Let's ground this with a super relatable everyday example to really highlight the difference between standard understanding and actionable advice. Say you look out your window during the day and you see these thick, heavy, dark clouds rolling in. The logical conclusion is pretty obvious. It's going to rain. That right there is an insight. You took data, the visual of the clouds, and derived an understanding from it. But at this point, it's just a standard insight. It doesn't actually tell you what you should do about it.
Now, let's inject that crucial business context. Imagine your current situation is this. You have to walk home right now, and you happen to be wearing your absolutely favorite, easily ruined, horribly expensive silk shirt. Suddenly, those exact same dark clouds mean something very, very different to you.
And this perfectly illustrates the transformation we're talking about. The standard insight was just knowing it was going to rain. But when you smash that raw knowledge together with your situational context, the silk shirt and the long walk home, it magically transforms passive knowing into active doing. Your actionable insight becomes a directive. I need to buy an umbrella right now. You aren't just a weatherman predicting the rain anymore, you're making a strategic decision to protect your assets. And that is exactly what we have to do as data analysts.
Finally, part 5, linking actions to goals.
Let's bring this umbrella analogy directly back to the business world. Let's say you just crushed a customer profiling project and your data reveals 3 totally distinct customer segments. First up, your high-value segment. They spend over 1,000 INR, they live in Delhi, and they're married with kids. Next, you have an underserved segment. They're also in Delhi, but they're single, hold university degrees, and have been at their jobs for over 2 years. Lastly, your low-value folks. They live outside Delhi and don't hold a degree. Now, this is great information, but right now, it's just dark clouds. It's just raw data. To make it actionable, we need the context of our organizational goal. Here is where the magic happens. Look at how the exact same data leads to 2 wildly different directives depending on the top-level goal. If upper management's goal is to grow market share, well, they need totally new customers. So your actionable recommendation is to aggressively target that underserved segment, the single-employed grads in Delhi. But if the company's objective is to grow profit, the whole strategy completely flips. To maximize profit, your actionable insight is to hit your high-value customers with heavy marketing. Run ads in Delhi for those married couples with kids, while cutting your marketing spend on the low-value segment outside the city. Same exact data table, right? But totally different actionable insights.
So, the one crucial point I want you to walk away with today as you head back to your own analytics work is this. Are your data reports just telling the weather, or are they actually selling umbrellas? I mean, anyone can point out the dark clouds in a spreadsheet, but the true value of data, the real game changer, lies in combining it with business context to deliver actionable advice that drives real results. I challenge you to move past those standard insights and start delivering absolute directives. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.